We've been pigeonholing ourselves and our children, assuming that genius is only academic, and then we end up marginalizing everything else around you. That's why last week I was really excited to hear what everyone was saying as far as getting messages to the children, infusing the children with entrepreneurship, because that's how and when it should start, so that we can empower people at a young age to then become contributors to the world in ways that we need, but that aren't being serviced right now. So Ink Well Spoken speaks into youth primarily, but also other adults in the corporate arena through my wife, to make sure that everyone is contributing at a genius level. That has nothing to do with IQ, but you'll see what genius is in a moment. The mission of Ink Well Spoken: we excel at the facilitation of workshops and development of community and corporate leadership, revolving around the threefold components of the genius equation. So this is what this equation is. I am an engineer by degree, but I'm a creative at heart. And so knowing that most people respond to, or most people are presenting information in a very logical manner, that's one of the learning styles that they have in school, but there are six other learning styles, 6 or 7 other learning styles. One of them is visual. So though I have an equation for genius, I like to show it in a visual presentation with this Venn diagram. So the three components of genius that I've identified are a combination of your passion, your talent, and your purpose. Once you can identify what those three things are, where they overlap is where your genius resides. And so just to do this really quickly, your purpose in life is to identify your God-given talent and then apply it to your passion. And in doing so, you'll unlock your genius. Now, as I'm redefining genius, I'm also redefining passion, because most people will say, well, do what you love. And in fact, I say that your passion, when it comes to what you're meant to do in this world, is closely tied to what you hate. Because when you look around and you see something that's broken that impacts you in a negative way, you begin to speak about it all the time. And you begin to say, won't somebody fix this? Won't somebody fix this? This is annoying me. People speak about their passions, or people speak about what they hate with a passion, if you ever notice how people speak. And so what I begin to tell people, and I love telling youth this, because youth are quick to tell you what they hate, right? And so when I begin to tap into, tell me what you hate, and then I say, hey, look, did you know that your talent is your tool that you've been given to fix what's broken in the world, to fix the thing that you hate? And once you identify that, you're going to tap into your genius. And I'll give you a quick example of that. So I was talking about learning styles a moment ago. I go into, this message is universal for anybody. And so I went into a class a couple of years ago of 8 to 9 students. They were in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. They were all on IEPs, which, if you're in the education realm, is an individual education plan, what we would have called special ed back in the day. They didn't necessarily have learning disabilities. They were just very rambunctious and had emotional issues, where they were always disrupting class, always doing things that caused the teacher to have to pause and make sure that they were being catered to. So what this particular school did, they said, hey, look, we're going to put these 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders into a class all by themselves all day. And so what do you think happened? You put together, that's like a keg, a powder keg waiting to explode. And so I came into this powder keg and I asked them, what do you hate? And what do you think they told me? Just take a wild guess.
Lexi says homework.
So that's getting into it. Homework is school. So they thought they was going to derail my whole presentation. They said school, Mr. Key, we hate school. And now what you're going to do? And I said, I'm so glad you said that, because if you're telling me that you hate school, then you're telling me that you're meant to fix the school system. And if you're meant to fix the school system, then you're future educators. Nobody had ever said that to them before. All the labels that were being put on them, that said that they were disruptive, that said that they were bad students, that said that they were this, that, and the third, nobody ever empowered them to say, there's something broken about the system, not you. And when you get inside that system and turn your learning style, which was not being taught to them, turn your learning style into a teaching style, now you're fixing the problem that is making you feel marginalized. So that's how genius works when I go into these schools and when I pitch it to anybody, any audience that's willing to listen. And so we talked about this last week. When you get into this equation, when you get into anything that you're trying to be successful at, you have to be willing to fail. And this is the acronym that I spoke of last week. Failure or to fail is the first attempt in learning. People aren't going to pick up this genius equation and just figure it out right away. It's a Rubik's cube. It's a puzzle, and you have to be willing to try different pieces and get it wrong and then get it right. If I had time, I would tell you about how my genius was wrong for many years with that engineering degree that I'm no longer using, but now I'm flourishing because I understand where my genius lies and how to execute it. And so this is, we won't read through all of this, but I like to share this with Elon Musk. I mean, we know him to be a successful person, but this is a list of his failures. He failed time and time again before he started finally getting traction in what he was good at. And so I just like to give real life examples for students to let them know this is real. Here is the logical presentation of my equation. Passion plus talent plus purpose is really simple. People hate math. I love math. I'm a geek, but math is all about failing to get to the right equation or to get to the right answer. And so that's what life is about. And so we need not shy away from failure. And so when I begin to talk about talent, talent is generational. These are my books. If you pay attention at the bottom, you'll see that not all of these books have my name on them. This is where our family really becomes vital in my presentation when I go into schools and when we go into corporate America and pitch these concepts. The last three books that you see are my children's books, not books that are for children, but books that are written by my actual children. When my son was 9 years old, he had, the first place that I started teaching this equation to it was in my household with my children. And my son heard that, hey, daddy's a wordsmith. Daddy creates things with words. And I told him, because that's inside of me, it's inside of you. And he believed it to the point where when I came out with my second book, he came out with his first book. And of course, his younger sister was watching and saw the attention he was getting, and she was like, "I can write books too." And I'm like, "Yes, you can." And so that's how genius works. It's very much inspirational, and it's like a small fire that begins to spread around you when you begin to shine as you are meant to. And so my daughter beat my son to the punch. She published her first book at 8 years old, and now they're both 13 and 9. And they understand they don't have the full scope of genius. They don't know exactly what they hate, but they are sharpening their tool, their talent, to figure out, once I know what I hate, though, this is how I'm going to utilize it. And this is how I'm going to apply it to then change the world around me. And so this is also now where I get into the other aspect of my business. I have another business called Water to Wine Press Publishing House, where we help other people walk through this process and navigate the publishing realm to release books. And these are all the people who I've helped to date. The last two, Not a Broken Girl and Matters of the Heart, are books that were just published within the last couple of weeks, within the last month, actually. But yeah, this is the people. The first book that you see, Diary of a Baseball Player, was a friend of my son. When he came back in fourth grade with a published book, his friend was like, "I publish book, I write too." And I said, "Let me speak to your parents." And we were able to get his friend published. All of these books are on Amazon, available for sale now. And so the component of Water to Wine Press Publishing House, our vision statement is this: we exist as a gateway for authors to enter into the marketplace for the proliferation of independent and quality content. What I do is I edit and format the manuscript to get it in a presentation, or in a what's the word I want to use, in a format that is viable for being put into the marketplace. The mission of Water to Wine Press Publishing House: we excel at editing and formatting independent manuscripts into viable self-published books released through Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing, to establish authors as subject matter experts in the content of their books. And so when you look at our value chain or our pipeline, I do have a faith-based component called Manu Forte Ministries. But when you combine that with Inkwell Spoken, when I go and I do speaking engagement at churches, when I go and do speaking engagements in schools, those two things feed into Water to Wine Press Publishing House. Because once I inspire somebody who says, "Hey, I have an idea for a book, but I don't know how to release it," then I connect with them and push them, not push them, but I guide them through to Water to Wine Press Publishing House to get them to a point where they can release a self-published book. And that's my pitch. That's my business.